Hello, welcome to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and we have a really special guest today. I always say it's a special guest and super excited, but actually I made a special exception because, as you know, I've kind of shifted away from the spirituality genre and more talking about psychology now. But today, our guest, you may remember her from the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? She channels Ramtha. She's also the creator of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment in Yelm, Washington. Very charismatic woman, very controversial school. So we're going to be talking about that today. Today's guest is Jay-Z Knight. Welcome to the show, Jay-Z.
Oh, my heck, Marie, it's such a great opportunity to be with you and Canada. Hello, Canada.
Yay. Yeah, you're just not very far away from us.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
I like it.
I really love your energy. You sound so excited. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I was thrilled when I received the email that you were available for interviews. So I'm curious, though, what is it that, because you haven't done a lot of interviews with smaller shows like mine, so what was it that you're out there promoting now and wanting to educate people on?
Well, it's not so much promoting, but at channeling Ramtha and having this very bizarre life for 39 years, I sort of semi-retired from the company. I am their emeritus, and I had time, for the first time in a long time, actually, to be able to just tell people what I've learned and what I have experienced that may or may not be helpful for them in their lives, and doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is chat like this.
Cool. I love it. Well, I'm so glad that you have time to chat because you're just a fascinating person. Like you said, you've had a very unconventional life. Now,
yes, to say the least.
So tell us a little bit for people who maybe aren't familiar with what you do and Ramtha. I'm a skeptic. I have to warn you. So what's the deal with channeling Ramtha?
Well, first off, let me address skeptics. There are two kinds of skeptics that I've run across, and God bless you all. There are two kinds. There are those that no matter how much you try to give them proof, you're never going to change their mind because it's not their job to have their mind changed. So they're professional skeptics. Then there are skeptics who are just there because they've never had the experiences in their own life, and because they haven't had personal experience to something other outside of our box. For example, because they haven't had firsthand experience, they have the ability to doubt, and I think it's a healthy thing to have that. But also at the same time, be open to a greater mind and greater experiences. Just don't shut the door on them because you want to be called a skeptic, therefore not being aligned with anything outside of social consciousness. So, fine with me.
Okay, good. Oh, I love that you're open to the skepticism in me. So how did you just wake up one morning and some dude was talking out of your mouth? I mean, how did Ramtha come about?
I like it, dude. No, the story's fairly well known. 1977, my husband and I was a dentist, and as you know, we live in this lovely Pacific Northwest up into Canada, and we were hikers. We were part of a club that hiked, and I had two young children, two sons in grade school, and we were just making pyramids. I mean, I was a dentist wife, and we were making pyramids because pyramids at that time was the rage, pyramid energy, pyramid this, pyramid that. And if you go back to 1977, you'll see that, in fact, that's what it was. And what we were doing, sort of through a scientific mind, was to conduct our own tests, to make these little pyramids to scale and align them to true north. And so we had a cacophony of things underneath. The means to the end, of course, is how could we lighten our backpacks, and if we could preserve food. I mean, what a great idea. So we started that on a Friday night, in our house, pull down the shades in case anybody saw us doing anything strange. Wouldn't let the children come in, and so we had little pyramids, all over my kitchen. I had my oven doors open. I had things on them, and my husband would go along and make sure they hadn't been disturbed, that they were aligned. So we had compasses, and that was on a Friday night, and we were just full on in remarkable yet hidden discoveries. And Sunday we were up all night, and then most of the day Saturday doing this and checking on our test items like bologna, milk, wine, razor blades. All the things that they said it would work on. And about 2:30, we were just sitting at the table. You couldn't walk through my kitchen or dining room without disturbing these little pyramid Egyptian models. And so I just put one on my head and started laughing. I said, well, maybe it will help my brain. And it was at 2:30 on Sunday, not at night, but in the afternoon. And this light filled into the kitchen, and the compass on the table started spinning like an airplane. It started whining, and there was this being. You can read more about how that all happened in my book, A State of Mind, that was published in 1987. And once you read that, you'll understand that this was something I wasn't searching for. This is something that happened to me, and continued the path for the next 39 years and changed my life tremendously. I didn't even know who Edgar Casey was, so I was pretty much a greenhorn, but loved God always. And so this is how my experience happened. And the fact that I don't just open my mouth and some dude speaks out, it was actually a process of training for about 2 years. And we have just recently completed DNA tests with 3 labs and 1 major lab to confirm all the 3 blind test labs across the states. And my DNA is different than Ramtha's, and that just made medical history. So it's not something that I just go into some sort of trance. I don't trance. I don't meditate. I don't do any of that. I just leave my body. And the results that were underwent in 1996, 2-year study, scientific study, found, in fact, that there was a phenomenon that went on that was a major sort of thing. So I sort of have near-death experiences, and I've been having them for 39 years. Ramtha is the being who coined the term channeling that became very popular in our lexicon today, because I wasn't in a trance. I wasn't aware. I wasn't, I was gone. I went down this tunnel. I don't even remember ever having done that, but once on the other side, then I did see and remember. So this is what started Ramtha's great iconic movement in the 80s, and he was a 1980s icon. And his message was very simple. It was, behold God, that God was something not in religion, and God was not insecure. You could call it anything and everything, because it was, and that inside of us, we were all essentially divine beings, and went on with that message that sort of cleaned up the spiritual New Age community to where that focus became upon the divinity of people rather than the phenomenon that sometimes gets way out there and it becomes laughable. Mm. There you go. So the dude has been tested.
The dude. All right. Well, we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Right now, we are speaking with Jay-Z Knight. She channels Ramtha. Jay-Z is the developer of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment, which is in Yelm, Washington, just across the border. And we'll be right back with more Synchronicity. Talk radio for your mind, body, and soul in just a moment. Welcome back to Synchronicity, talk radio for your mind, body, and soul here on CITR 101.9 FM in Vancouver. We're talking with Jay-Z Knight, who's just across the border in Yelm, Washington. She is the channel of Ramtha, and if you've seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, this is where you would recognize her from. And if you want more information, the website is ramtha.com. Welcome back to the show, Jay-Z.
lovely being here with you and your audience. Great forum.
Thank you. So I heard in the background, I think I heard like a walkie-talkie saying, "What's your 20?" or something. So are you on the compound of Ramtha School of Enlightenment?
It's actually not a compound. It's just a big ranch, and we converted the riding arena into a place for people to come and learn. And it's not a place, it's not a following, it's not a compound. It's where the school is located.
Mm. And now I had one guest a while back who was a student of yours, and she was talking about her lottery win. And so I'm curious about some more of the things that you teach people, because I know that Ramtha School of Enlightenment teaches about higher consciousness and being your best self. So what is the gambling part of the teachings? I'm curious about that.
Gambling. Okay. How about wins? I like that. One student, but there are hundreds of them. And it was simply a discipline. I mean, the school has been going on since 1988, and it was a school based on how, what is the divine self, and what is its possibilities. And when we talk about consciousness, it's sort of a throw-around word that people struggle to understand it. They just nod and say, of course, but they don't understand what consciousness means when we talk about a higher order versus a lower order. The school was really about the initiation of people into understanding how their brain works, how the body is connected to the spiritual sphere, our spiritual body that does survive death and returns, and how the connection of consciousness and energy, which are inextricably combined. In other words, when people say, well, they have great energy, but what is that energy? That energy is connected with information. Consciousness is information, and it's active. That's its energetic part. And we talk about the brain. Students learn about their brain. Our children in the school, two of them won world competitions at UW by drawing in their category what the brain was. It's very scientific in a contents. And so you have to learn about you. If you're going to define you as having unlimited possibilities, that you use less than 10% of your brain, for example, well, what's going on with the rest of it? And with your DNA, is your DNA locked into who you are today, or is DNA plastique? It's possible to change not just your mind, but it's consciousness and energy on the brain gives us that life, gives us the imagination, gives us those thoughts out of the blue. Our personality is sort of like a computer program that says, well, this is who we are. We are the sum total of our philosophical understanding. We are the sum total of our environment. We are the sum total of our experiences within that environment. And here is our DNA, and this is how we are who we are. And yet, are those fixed concepts? And if they're not fixed, what is the nature of change, and how does that come about? And so in the school, over these years, it was very beautiful teachings that took on the brain, the cells, the body, how it functions. What is mind? Most people think mind is your brain, but actually mind is the exotic result of impulses of consciousness and energy in which the brain processes into long-term or short-term memory. And those then determine how we are genetically and how our cells, the cell health is genetically. So once the students, and you know, philosophy is fabulous, but not until you experience it, you experience your ability to use different parts of your brain to manifest anything in your life, but you start small so that your acceptance is always accepting the possibility that you can do things. And so over a period of time, this had a full range of remote viewing, sending and receiving, which the CIA and the man who wrote the book Psychic Warrior said that one of their trainings in Virginia was that they studied the Ramtha material on how to do sending and receiving and remote viewing. And that happens at the first class, in the first 4 hours of a beginning class in school called a 101. So we progress into, can we then, our mind can do this. So what if we're sick? What if we are unhappy? What if we are emotionally depressed about our life? What do all of those answers, what do they mean, and are they fungible? Can this knowledge, can we access that knowledge about ourselves to change on a daily basis who we are and how we're living, whether it's health, prosperity, emotional displacement, disorientation? How do we become happy and the creators of our own world? And so now we come up to the what you call gambling. It was actually a fieldwork study that can you go into the arena and hold the focus on what you want, the numbers that you want, whether you're playing them in the lottery, whether you're in a casino with all kinds of distractions. Can you keep your focus in that now vacuum state that you can actually create wealth from it? It was just a field exercise. And, of course, now lots of people use it and lots of people win. Other people are learning how to use their mind to win, but that is only one area. We also have people who have affected their health, who've affected reversing age in their body, curing things. And it isn't that it is through some sort of quasi-spiritual voodoo. It's actually rather scientific. And the approaches in how we learn about why we're wonderful and why we have innately in us the opportunities for change in our life, to be reborn, to change who we are, to self-correct what we think on a daily basis, that instead of creating a day of lack, we create a day of abundance. And that's what's taught here. So in the end result is that what do we say about our genes that most of them don't even come from this planet? I mean, that's what Watson and Crick discovered. That's very well known today. Where is our programming coming from? And do we have options to change the DNA molecule, to reassess with our minds what we think matters in our body? If we change what we think, we change how our cellular responses change in our body, and it's a matter of choice. It's called free will. So this is what is being studied here, and no one has seatbelts on. No one has signed their life away. It's not a religion. Nothing that we teach is about religion. Religion is study of God and power and a belief system, whereas this is more of the individual and backing it up with experiences.
We are speaking right now with J.Z. Knight. She channels Ramtha and teaches at Ramtha's School of Enlightenment, but it sounds like you've stepped back a bit from the teaching now?
I have, after 39 years, Ramtha is rather ubiquitous around the world, and I just got tired. My body goes through a DNA shift every time that I channel. I mean, that's just come out, and it's remarkable if you think that the same body can be changed by a different entity from my DNA to another DNA, and it's made medical history. But on the other hand, it's not so much that, I mean, I considered it the final word, my last word. Yes, Ramtha was real, and yes, all of this was possible, but in a bigger way, that it just shows that when you change your mind and restructure your personality and self-correct from the negative, the sad, the emotional aspects that control you every day, if you can change that on your own, and it's very simple, create your day on your own, that in fact your DNA will start to read differently. And I just see this as a capstone of my work for 39 years of leaving my body and channeling, starting out as a relatively young woman to today. I love God, and I love who we are and what is possible. And so my stepping back of a 39-year commitment doesn't mean that we don't have Ramtha or we don't have them. We don't have them as much, but we have such an enormous vault of knowledge, and the school is going on with the teachers that can do all of this work. So this allows me to talk with you today and other people that I'm talking to without the need to keep running a big company. We run the company because by law we have to have one, and we're not a church, so we're not and we could have been a nonprofit organization. We are just a corporation where the employees get compensated for their work, we pay our taxes, et cetera, et cetera. But at the heart of that, in that instrument lies the teachings that we've worked very hard to make possible for anyone who is keenly interested.
Wonderful. Well, JZ, I'm curious, how much of your teachings at Ramtha School of Enlightenment are based on research on modern science, and how much comes directly from Ramtha?
Most of our research, now you have to understand, Ramtha was teaching in the early 80s, and he was teaching about DNA. He was teaching about the brain, how the brain works, and that consciousness and energy on the brain, that the brain is a facilitator of information, which in turn changes the body. He was also fundamentally there on understanding the nature of reality itself, and on a scientific level, how does that work? And this is back 1980, 1981, and he was talking about the quantum field and how that whatever we observe, what is observable by you and your audience and everyone else in the world, becomes the rule, the law of reality. That our ability, what makes us critically divine, is that when we pause and focus on a word, we pause, have a thought, that our thoughts are making our reality. And when we come and apply that to a scientific methodology called observation in quantum field physics, it's absolutely right on. And he was doing that before that ever got out there, became the big thing. So many things that Ramtha has taught and prophesied have come to pass, and we have years of that, and we finally always break news when findings were found to support something that he had been teaching people who came to see him about long time ago, last century. So all of it is we are working every day. Right now, you're working right now and talking to me. You're creating a reality by how you're going to ask these questions of me and then how I'm going to respond. Your listeners are listening to something that may be possible for them, and the moment that they allow that to come in, it's not some voodoo. It's allowing a field effect, a quantum field effect, to manifest that field of possibility. It is rooted in neuroscience. It's rooted in theoretical quantum physics, which is not really a theory any longer. It's rooted in DNA. So all of it, all these years, has been groundbreaking work. But, there's nothing so dangerous as a new idea. There's nothing so dangerous as a person learning something more about themselves instead of following the herd mentality. And so we've always had blowback from every corner, but it still doesn't take away that ladies win, and it doesn't take away people who are got it, understand it, and it doesn't take away our love of God, however we see that to be. It doesn't take that away. It enhances it.
Thank you. Well, we are speaking right now with JZ Knight. She channels Ramtha, and she is the founder of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment. If you want more information, you go to ramtha.com. This is Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and we'll be back in a flash. Welcome back to Synchronicity Talk Radio for your mind, body, and soul. We are speaking right now with Jay-Z Knight. If you've seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, then you've probably seen Jay-Z because she was in that. And welcome back to the show, Jay-Z.
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, we got cut out.
All right. Welcome back to the show. So you were mentioning before the break this idea of how so many of us follow the herd. And I know that that's one of the things that I'm challenged with is I want to be a more original thinker. I don't care too much what people think, but I find that coming up with my own original ideas seems like a challenge because I'm just so accustomed to following what's been done before and what's been proven. So, and I know you do talk about this addiction to the past.
Yes.
So where does that come from, and how do we break away from that?
Marie, that's such a great question. And if I may, having your own thoughts, you have no idea how having your own original thought could meet with such blowback and such doubt. And because no one likes anyone changing, because anybody that changes within their life, any part of what we think, everyone in our life, Marie, they are all fragments of a mirror in a circle. All of our friends, all of our enemies, all of our family, everyone, they are a part of our reality. They interact. They are fundamentally a part of our personality and how it's shaped and formed. The moment that we sort of start changing an idea, or like you said, come up with your own original thought, that fractures some mirrors, some people, place, thing, time, or event in our life. But on the other hand, I mean, this is why people are afraid to change, because it will make so many other people unhappy. It'll make them not wanted, and they'll get exiled, all that sort of thing. But what happens in the loss of that reflection comes the future, because you see, you don't have people that just don't like you anymore because you're different. Those people have their place, of course, but they also represent you. I mean, that's a relationship in reality, on a ground of being, of people, places, things, times, and events. If the loss of one, make space for one who agrees. Make space for people, places, things, times, and events who share same thinking. So having an original thought is difficult, too, because most people don't understand how our brain works. Most people don't understand that our personality is sort of like, it's a program on a computer. And then what happens is that we're sort of led by our emotions that we have occurred or accrued from the beginning of our life. And what emotions are in the schematic of why they're important is because you can't have a philosophy and call it truth unless you experience that philosophy. And how do we experience things? We experience them by engaging in them. And how does the body respond in the engagement? Emotionally. And so what happens is that emotion then becomes a fundamental experience. So now what you believe is not what you believe anymore. It's what you know. So emotions are what we know. And they're important because they help fulfill the bracket of our reality. Our society is emotionally driven. It's about feelings. It's about feeling good. It's about love and happiness, and if you wear this or buy that, or you're with this person or that person, it's all about acceptance. But you understand that's a program. Those are old emails. So what happens is that we don't get a future, and all of this is about the future. If we want every day based upon the repetitiveness of a feeling, well, we pick bad people as bad partners, or we get ourselves stuck in the same rut over and over and over. Well, why is it that we are repeating that? Because we're addicted to the emotions, and we're asking for that replacement. So in other words, we're not living today as a future. We're just recycling from our past. Our future is gone. Only our past lives today. So the moment that we understand that we're a program, that we are responding to our old emails, and in the moment that we know that, and that we're responding emotionally, and that those emotions really have their roots earlier in our existence, and we're trying to continuously find and repeat them. It's a drug. I mean, emotions are chemicals, by the way. And so you can't have a future to where tomorrow morning you work on genius, or today you work on that you've always had radiant health, even though you don't. There's somewhere in your brain, there is somewhere knowledge sits that can be utilized for your DNA, and all it has to do is make it to your frontal lobe that it's recognizable and embrace it. The moment you do that, you start creating the future, because that's new. That's outside the box. And the moment you start changing, you're going to send a ripple effect in your reality. But then you have to ask yourself, do I want the future, or do I just want to keep growing old? And by the way, the reason that we age is because we are nothing new. We keep our RNA opens every day and makes poorer and poorer copies of the DNA that is absolutely inextricably combined with our mind. And every day, those telomeres start to get worn down, and they're making defective proteins, not something that's useful and wonderful in our body. See, we don't have healthy telomeres like we did when we were children. It's because, here's the key to it, Marie, because every day our thoughts are wearing away our possibilities by replicating old thoughts. The moment you change, your DNA changes. Your DNA begins to link up with what is going on in creating your day, or what is going on in saying, this is who I am. And no, I haven't had the experience today of that, but it's coming. And when we have the new experience of the future, those are brand new emotional experiences. Those are brand new truths. So we get old. We have to trade in, holding our position and aging because of it. Or we trade in our old position and begin to implement possibilities that then begin to affect our life. The will of change is in us. It's free will. And at once we have the free will to change, it's only we who are the jailers against possibility, no one else.
But JZ, we're talking about the past, and then we're talking about the future. And I mean,
yes.
isn't looking at the past and then projecting into the future? I mean, aren't those kind of the two sides of the same coin? What about being in the present moment?
Are you ever in the present moment?
Briefly, occasionally.
Right. And that's honest, because we actually, our brain is always functioning, So whatever occupies our frontal lobe becomes law. I mean, it's sort of the observational point possibility, or same old, same old. The future is something we haven't lived. And in order to obtain it, we have to enter a state of intentional focus on the architecture, the scaffolding of the day. This is what we want. This is how we focus it in so it can be observed into reality. That moment is actually a vacuum state. The now doesn't exist in the arrow of time. I mean, the arrow of time doesn't have a now in it. It's progressive. It's ongoing. There is no pause unless it's an intentional pause or it's a shocking pause. But it's a vacuum state. And a vacuum state exists outside of time, which is exactly where the quantum field exists, in a vacuum state. So when we live in the now, we're living in a continuous sort of state of observation. We are keenly aware. We're self-correcting things we don't want, and we're embracing the things we do. And the future, which we now move back into time, has now been changed into implementing that. Now you think better, now you see better, Now you feel better, and yes, you feel as if you are onto something big. All the opportunities in your life come only when you open up to them. So the now is not a time state. It's outside of time. It's a vacuum state. Time, is just an arrow. It's moving forward. Do we want the arrow to continue to replicate the past? You see?
Mm-hmm. I'm curious how much, you asked me much time I spend in the now. I mean, you've been doing this work for longer than I've been alive. So how much time do you spend in the now versus working on the future?
Well, this is what we learn to do. And you can't do this unless you want to do it. I couldn't leave my body unless I was present. And it took a while for me to learn how to do that. I came up with an idea about creating a new neighborhood. I wanted to go live in my brain. I wanted to go be without illness. I wanted to be without all of the things that were yesterday's news in my life. And I created the architecture of it. And it was just really about 4 simple sentences that I began, and I said, I'm going to move. I'm going to turn the lights out my personality. I'm going to move. I want to have these other experiences, because as long as I'm in my past, I don't get them. And so I wrote out, I said, I have to create the architecture, God, the great architect. I have to create the architecture. And so the architecture, or the bones of the change, would have to start with 4 sentences, very small, and they would always have to include the word always, to recognize that information and that possibility is not only in my DNA, but it's in my consciousness and energy somewhere in my brain. And, I'm open to that. So I did that, and I spent about every day self-correcting meaning I'd stop with a thought that wasn't productive, that was way too familiar, and I would reinsert this information. The hippocampus in our brain is actually where small neurons are born. That's where the baby seeds of neurons are born. When we have new thoughts, we grow new neurons. If we don't have new thoughts, we don't grow new neurons. It takes about 29 days for each one of these sentences I said to actually be a neurological possibility, and interestingly goes into deeper parts of the brain, to access that highway of information of 7 different levels of consciousness and energy, so that then that becomes observationally what's going on with me every day. And it started working right away. 29 days later, it was I thought as this scaffolding. Within 6 months, I had become it. And so, meaning that it's simple to do. This is not hard. It's not over anyone's intellect to do. The heart of the matter is, do you want to do this? And anyone listening to you now can simply start by creating their day. And the way they create their day is they just write down, this day, I have always been a genius. Okay, laughable, but let's do it, because what else are you going to do today? I've always been filled with radiant health. Yes, you have bad hips, you have bad knees. Yes, but let's do this. Let's let mind lead the way for a period of neurological time, which is about 29 days, to grow the neurons in our brain that absolutely can access that and allow our DNA to start taking charge of our body. And in the meantime, we're babysitting this. We're standing up for this new possibility against doubt, which comes not from other people, it comes from ourselves. And so you have to be wanting to do it. You could say, this day, I am filled with joy. I've always been filled with joy. So you've been depressed, you take medication, start today. It could be, I want a new job, I want a new house. It could be anything. I have always had fabulous wealth, and you're poor as a church mouse. But this is how we begin to change our situation, and what makes us a divine person is that we have the right, and we fundamentally are composites that all work together to bring about an idea into our living system. So how much do I do this? All the time. And do I understand that the now is different in time? Yes, I do. And yes, I get up every morning. I create my day between 3 and 5 a.m. And then for the rest of the day, it's a law. This is how my day works. If I want something, I get it. I don't have to be good for people. I don't have to be bad for people. I just have to have a plan. Do you understand?
I do, yes. We've had Dr. Joe Dispenza on the show before, and he talks about creating your day. And Neville Goddard also taught about that. And I am curious about the 4 sentences. You mentioned some sentences. Are those the specific ones that you use, or are there different ones?
Well, I started out with those. And by the way, Dr. Joe Dispenza learned that from Ramtha. Mm-hmm. So it's not his idea. It was something that he was taught when he was in school. And so because he was on the Bleep, everybody thought it was his idea, but it never was his idea. It's what he knows how to do, and thank goodness he's saying that. But that's where he learned it, was at the school. Now, no one really got it like this. That I started out with because I had a health issue, and I knew that I was in a bad place. But I was wise enough through my work with Ramtha and being on the other side, I knew that I needed to occupy a different place in my brain and really construct a new personality with experiences yet to come, not on what was. What was becomes wisdom, that we know that we've already done that. We've already been there. We've already felt that way. We've already experienced that. I wanted new experiences. And so I said, I have always been radiantly healthy. It's in my genes. I mean, I said that and said that. My next sentence was, I am 30 years younger and always have been. Now, this was about 5 years ago. And I'm 69. I don't look 69. I don't have the DNA of a 69-year-old, and I don't have the telomeres of a 69-year-old. But I didn't do it for vanity. I did it for organ tissue, for regeneration. I gave a date, so I wanted to be healthy 30 years ago, at that time, 30 years younger. So at 30 years younger, I was vibrant and healthy and radiant and all sorts of things. And so I use that as an experiential wisdom in which to say I've always been 30 years younger. And then the last thing I said, that I have been filled with the love of God. I've always been filled with the love of God, for God is all things and all people. And you can't love people until you have it in your heart. You can't love people unless you are it. And you can't understand people unless you understand you. And so, tolerance, compassion, believing in people's ability to change, or wherever they're at, is wherever they're at. I don't need to lay upon somebody else my ideas, my judgments, all the things that they're used to and struggling against. Love teaches us differently. So those were my sentences that I created that wonderful day from and began with. And as those illnesses went away miraculously, we had the doctors come to school and show the test and so on and so forth. Then I began to modify it. I grew those neurons after an insistence, and I did it in a walk. This was the other thing. The neuroplasticity open to the brain is greater, it's available greater when we're moving. And there was no science on that. That science came out 2 years after I taught this. So I do this walk, and I zone on this walk. I fix my eyes on some horizon, I zone out everything, and I just put those words in front of me. Now, my walk could also be to my bathroom. It could be to my dishwasher, and I'm self-correcting. And so pretty soon I just started thinking like this, and I knew I was getting well. I was getting younger. But not for vanity, but for health. And my compassion for my fellow beings changed dramatically.
Thank you. Well, we are speaking.
I wanted to.
We are speaking with J.Z. Knight. She is the channel of Ramtha. You may recognize her if you've seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? She runs Ramtha's School of Enlightenment in Yelm, Washington. You can find more information at ramtha.com. And we have just a few minutes left in the show before Parts Unknown comes up here on CITR. And because we were talking about this addiction to the past and how so few of our thoughts, or at least so few of my thoughts, are original, I don't want to ask you another question of mine. What I want to ask you is, what question do you most want to answer?
Golly, that's a big menu. There is so much evidence out there. If we take the time to investigate the possibilities of our brain, DNA, go get a DNA test. Find out what your gene markers are. Those are very important. Find out if what you say in a focused state works. I mean, you have nothing to lose. Just think about the next 2 weeks, the next 14 days. You're going to be doing the same old, same old. This is very focused work, but the greatest point of it is 20 minutes and then reinforcing it throughout the day. What else do you have to lose? You cannot say this doesn't work if you have not applied it. All of this information is about your listeners and you, Marie. It's about how wonderful we are. And it's not just because we believe that, but because we research and find out why we are. Do work on yourself. Find out how your brain works. There's a great man that lives in Tacoma. His name is Jason Paget. I'm sure you've heard of him. He wrote a book called Struck by Genius. He's a genius because somebody hit him in the head as a rowdy teenager, and he became a mathematical genius. How was that possible? Well, it's possible because that's in all of us. He had a physical injury that really tampered with his neurological personality, and that when he awoke, he had a mathematical ability, which we all do. Research yourself. Don't ask somebody how I look. Ask yourself how you look. I taught myself through Ramtha, through the myriad of experiences I've had all these years. But the information now is out there at your fingertips. Find out how you work and what is possible with you. And when people say it's not possible, that's their truth. That's not your truth. How could they possibly know what you know? If you give your power away of truth to other disbelievers, you don't deserve being fabulous. You just join everyone else and keep your head down. We're wonderful. Your folkies are wonderful. You are divine beings. You can do anything. You just have to take on to change yourself in a lovely, lovely way. And that's what we teach here at this school, with results.
Now, JZ, I need to address, I've done some research into Ramtha School of Enlightenment, and there are people who have left the school, and I totally I'm just curious. I don't have any judgment or bias about this. But some people do say that it is a cult. How do you respond to that?
That we're a cult?
Yeah.
I have to, well, what isn't a cult? We're not a cult, that dirty little four-letter word, like people want to say that we are, because that's the thing that they use against the school, that maybe there are aspects of themselves they don't want to change. Maybe it was difficult. We're not a cult. But if you want to believe that we are, you're absolutely free to do that. My understanding is this is mud that's thrown at us by people who don't like us. It's like saying the N-word. It's sort of a racist comment, actually, in terms of calling out someone else's belief system and finding the dirtiest word that you can call it. That's what it is. We pay taxes. Nobody has to come here. Nobody I mean, no one lives on this campus. No one around the world. So people like to say that because it empowers them. And remember, we're always going to shrink away from criticism unless you get it together and know that what you're doing is the truth for you. And everyone else, whatever they're doing, is their truth. Who cares what people say? If it heals you, if you change your life, if you become happy, why does that matter anyway? We're not a religion. We're not an all men's golf club. We're not a football team. We're not any of that. We are just an academic of thought and mind. That's what we are.
Thank you so much for that, Jay-Z. Well, we have just a couple of minutes left in the show, and I really appreciate you addressing that. I'm always nervous about questions like that, but I feel like it's important to ask because people are wanting to know. So thank you.
No. I will tell you, we have always heard that once Ramtha was an icon in the 80s. The church just said, what are we going to do to confront this? I mean, nobody gets on the front page of the New York Times 5 times. So that was the little thing that they sort of squashed out, that great decade of people coming out of the spiritual closet, proverbially speaking. And they got all kinds of, thought control people. And some of them I met in court, and they're very dubious. But you know something? Anybody that goes up and says that, if they have proof, then they face me in court. And I've already been there, done that. So it's small minds. And always understand that when somebody says that to you, they're not going to believe in whatever you do either.
Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jay-Z. Again, it's Ramtha.com. We are speaking with Jay-Z Knight. She is the founder of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment. And is there anything else that you want to add? It's just been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
Marie, I do. If you go to Ramtha.com, you can see all of the recent DNA test that was actually taken from my cheek as me, and then taken from Ramtha 2 days, 3 days later, and were blind tested to 3 different labs across the United States, and then a 4th lab that reviewed all of them. They absolutely, once they were told this came from the same person, they said it was impossible. You may go to the site and see this for yourself. Obviously, DNA doesn't lie. So no matter what anyone says, these are the results. And you can, if you want to know more about any of the things that we do, you can go to our website. We're here for you. We'll stand up and do our thing, and we take all comers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay-Z. It's been wonderful
Marie.
Speaking with you. Take care. Have a great day.
It was a pleasure talking to you and your audience, and I hope to meet you in the future sometime.
I'm sure we will cross paths again. Have a great day.
Thank you, honey.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jay-Z. Again, that was Jay-Z Knight. You can find her more information about Ramtha and Ramtha School of Enlightenment at ramtha.com. This has been Synchronicity, talk radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and it's been such a pleasure being here for you. I hope that you have a wonderful day. We'll be back next week, and I just want to send you lots and lots of love. I love you so much. Be well.